bands, and I travelled a lot with them up and down the country in a van. Another place was Burton's in Cricklewood Broadway. Either Trojan or Duke Finn or lots of different sound systems would come, and you would listen to all of this music. Also in those days we had the situation where you would have a band playing, but it would be the sound system, and the group would probably use 212 speakers. And normally when the band got on, it just didn't have the same power that the sound systems did. And this was one of the things that I think ASWAD were the first to do, to take PA. But suddenly you had like 100 watts of PA kicking out and they had to stand back. We were singing about the things that affected us, what we were going through. And in the early days, obviously it was the black situation. We were all young, black, British-born young men. And later on, I think during the times of the 3-day week, the cold strike, when things started to really change, I think, in the UK, we started to find that people came and said, I can identify with what you're saying. You know, that's the time when people started not to be able to just come out and find an apprenticeship and just go straight into it. Things started to get more dark in the UK. And then after a comment that was made by a well-known musician, they started Rock Against Racism. Rock Against Racism gave a platform for everything to have a voice. And I believe that was one of the building blocks of where we are today, because it meant that 50,000 people who would not have listened to reggae before were suddenly now in the same place and listening to a bit of reggae and then listening to a bit of this. And I like that. I can go with it.
Rock Against Racism broke down barriers, but one thing it couldn't do was stop the racism experienced by young black men and women growing up in the UK. Michael Riley of legendary Birmingham reggae band Steel Pulse.
I grew up in Handsworth, as did the other members of the band, and we grew up as first generation black British-born individuals, which meant that the experience of being Jamaican, once removed, was reinforced by our parents who were, as a community, were en masse. It was a very tight Jamaican community where the culture of Jamaican, or Jamaicanism, was strong. That came with the music. That came with the politics, that came with the experience of being black and being British, but the complexity of being first generation black British. So we're simultaneously Jamaican, hardcore, but we're born in Britain. So we are the generation that grew up with that identity crisis. Are we more Jamaican, are we more British? But there was a reality growing up in the 70s, which was you're being told you're not British by the state, by the government, by the police. The band represented that identity crisis, and realizing through reggae music that we had to stand up and be counted. We had to fight to discover who we were and then fight to hold on to what we were. And so that came about in realizing we were not going to talk about Jamaica because we don't know Jamaica except through the music. So we embraced our British experience and said we have to put that into the music.
Many of the bands growing up at that time were mixtures of black and white youth. The Specials, UB40, the English Beat, they all took Jamaican music and remade it. In Birmingham, reggae singer Pato Banton was part of that scene.
The 70s, what was interesting growing up in Birmingham was that there were two town bands, there were black and white musicians. During the 70s, it was a time when I was just leaving school and becoming an adult and becoming a musician at the same time. There were great bands like Steel Pulse, UB40, The English Beat. I used to enter a lot of talent competitions and just take any opportunity to get noticed. I remember The English Beat were playing at a theatre in Moseley, just up the road from me. And what was interesting, they had a talent contest just before The English Beat were going to perform. I managed to get to the contest just in time to sign my name before it started. So I was